Hey everybody, I'm Rahul Aleem from Custom Creatives, and today we're with one of the greatest of all time when it comes to sales, leadership, and culture.
Whoa!
Thank you so much for being here, Jim.
Nice honor, thank you.
Do you mind, I want to read some of the credentials that you have, which is the most impressive thing in the world to me.
Thank
and
you.
It's such an honor to have you here. I'm just going to read off my cue cards here. Jim has been rated as the top national speaker 5 years running. He's authored 18 books, some of which are international bestsellers. He's done over 3,100 speaking engagements all over the world. He's in the Speakers Hall of Fame, won the Gold Gavel Award, considered one of the top 50 sales influencers in the world. He's the former president of the National Speakers Association and has won the Cabot Award for lifetime service. You've been hired by your peers, which is absolutely, if you can share some of those names in a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the great honors. When the people you admire say, hey, I want to pay you to be part of my event,
right.
That's when you know you're getting somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the first to ever call me was Dr. Dennis Waitley. He and I had done a tour together, and he hired me for one of his events, and then then I had a chance to collaborate with Zig Zigler. Tommy Hopkins hired me. Earl Nightingale called me and put me on a recorded program that he was publishing. He was one of my big heroes. Brian Tracy said I was the first professional speaker he ever paid to speak to the Brian Tracy organization.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
So that was kind of cool. And Stephen Covey, Dr. Covey hired me to be part of a master series that he was producing, and many more. So it's just been wonderfully validating. You know, when you wonder if you're on the right path, that's kind of an indicator.
That's amazing. And you also are the top 1% of TEDx talks online.
That was such a surprise. I mean, I went to an event in Delray Beach, Florida to participate as a TED speaker, and it was an independently organized TEDx event. And I was one of 16 speakers for an audience of about 400. And what they do at those events, they have a rigid format for each event. And at the end of each event, the videos of it are published for free on YouTube or on the TED channel on YouTube. So I did my little 8.5-minute presentation, and I thought, scale of 1 to 10, I did about a 7.5. You know, I wasn't at my best, but I did a respectable job. So they contacted me a few months later and said, hey, we published it, it's on the air. And so I logged in and I saw I had something like 100 views. Yeah! And I thought, I'm going for 1,000. So I sent out an email blast to my people, and it got a couple hundred more. And then it started building. And I wasn't doing any more promotion of it, but it grew and it grew. And it got to where it was doing 1,000 views a day from around the world in various locations. And that pace has not changed for 4 years. 1,000 views a day for 4 years. It's got, last I saw was 1,340,000 views.
Wow, that's amazing. Isn't it crazy how doing a video can have that kind of organic and rapid fire growth over time?
I was in China 3 weeks ago, and a woman came up to me. I was at a movie premiere. That's kind of cool. And I was just, one of the audience members at the movie premiere. And she came across the room and said, you're Jim Cathcart. I've been watching you on video. I said, where? She said, TED.
That's amazing.
And she spoke Mandarin Chinese, but, a little bit of awkward English, but I got it clearly.
Well, speaking of which, I mean,
reaching them.
Isn't it, how important is it for people to do video so they can reach a broader audience?
Oh, today's world, it is today what audio was in the 70s. When I got into the field of personal development, it was the 1970s, and people had books and they had classes, but that's it. I mean, there weren't any public seminars, there were no big motivational rallies, there were no video channels, there was no YouTube, no cell phones. And so getting an audio cassette was the new big thing, because people had been listening to records. A record is a large disc that's kind of like a... I
think that may have been before my time even.
Yes.
But before we keep going, I got you a gift, and I want to hand it to you.
Wow.
Here. It's a little bigger than I expected. Whoops. Here we go.
Oh, my.
Can you see it?
Wow.
So.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know what the GOAT means. Have you ever heard of it?
Greatest of all time.
There you are.
Rahul, that is absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I did not expect it to be so
I think
large.
I'm going to put it on the front of my car.
Perfect. We can wrap your vehicle with it.
That's about the coolest thing I've seen in a long time.
Oh, awesome.
Wow. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. I met Jim while he was speaking at a Cal Lutheran University event at the Hub 101 School of Entrepreneurship Little Hub Center. And it was packed house. I mean, when he was talking about sales and saw his name, I'm like, I must see this gentleman speak. I'd never seen you speak before, not even on YouTube. I've heard of the Acorn Principle, which we'll get into. But I was just like floored. I mean, I don't think anybody got up to use the restroom. People were standing.
It was a good
it was a
event.
great
I was talking
turnout.
about finding the natural buyers for what you have to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. It was incredible. And at the end of it, you were handing out DVDs and signing stuff, and you're giving away these gems right here of information of the Acorn
Reminder
Principle.
card, summary card.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk to you afterwards, but you had such a mob around you that I just Googled you immediately, emailed you, and here we are. We connected, and we've had the pleasure to have coffee a few times, and you've given me some great tips.
There you go.
So it's been amazing.
New friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about, I want to talk about you and your background. And I mean, you've been at this for over 42 years, which is absolutely incredible.
I started as a rosy-cheeked kid. Yeah.
So where are you from? Where did you grow up, and how did you get into this?
I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was born in 1946. I'll let that settle in. 71 plus years old, depending on when you're watching this. My dad was a telephone repairman. Mom was a housewife. We had my grandfather, who was disabled by a stroke, in our front bedroom, and my grandmother helped take care of him. He was completely disabled. My little sister and me, and we, walked a few blocks to school nearby and lived in a happy, not upscale, happy middle-class suburban neighborhood. And I never expected much. I didn't expect to have, a brilliant career or anything like that. I thought I'll grow up, graduate from high school, maybe go to college, get a job at the phone company or someplace like that, be a manager in an office, retire when I'm 65, die at the statistical age for my gene pool, and nobody will remember I was here except my family.
Right.
And I was okay with that. I just didn't expect anything.
What did you think your career path would be at that age?
I didn't know, because when I went to college, I took business administration. They said, what do you want to major in? I said, no.
Right.
Because I was completely clueless. And they said, well, major in business administration. I said, okay, whatever that means. And I took a couple of years college, and then I dropped out of college. And I worked in a warehouse, and I sold cars, and I sold mutual funds and life insurance door to door, and I sang and played the guitar in nightclubs, and I just did all kinds of things. I counted it up one time. I've had 40 jobs. Wow! If you count when I was paid to handle inventory in the back of a bowling alley supply room, and when I had a paper route that I was paid for, and when I drove a truck, 40 different jobs over the years. And then I got married in 1970 and said, gee, I should get serious.
So these 40 jobs were before you got married in 1970?
And my wife, she said, I used to think, oh my God, I have married a flake. The guy has no idea what he's going to do for a living. And then in 1972, I discovered the field of personal development. And that's all I've done since then. Paula said one time when she was working in my office, she said, when people call and they say, hey, does Jim know anything about whatever? I can almost always say, yeah, he used to do that. Right. So what great training you had for a career where you're working in one industry after another, different fields every week.
So you had an interesting story where when you mentioned Earl Nightingale, right?
Yeah, he was my major mentor and guru. And
he's the one that kind of got you in the path in the field you're in now, is it?
Well, except that I didn't meet him. I heard him. I heard recordings, and I followed his guidance, but hadn't had any contact with him as a person at that point.
What, you were working a government job from what you told me a long time ago.
I washed out on a couple of other jobs and got a job at the Little Rock, Arkansas Housing Authority, the Urban Renewal Agency. $525 a month to be assistant to Bob Moore, and Bob Moore wasn't busy. So
sounds fun.
I had nothing to do. I was an assistant loan specialist, and Bob didn't need me. So I sat there and I read books on urban renewal. Didn't interest me. I read the Bible cover to cover at work in 3 months. 3 months.
Wow.
I had that much dead time at work. And I just sat and thought, what do I want to do when I grow up? I got a college catalog and I circled all the courses I wanted to take, and there were like 36 courses in there that I'd like to learn. Everything from the basics of engineering to boating protocols for people on a lake. There were just so many things I wanted to learn, but it didn't lead in a particular clear career path. So I was sitting there, and then in the next room on the radio, I heard this deep fatherly voice of Earl Nightingale, who was on 900 radio stations around the world at that time in 1972. He was considered the dean of personal motivation. And that day in 72, he said, if you will spend 1 extra hour every day studying your chosen field, in 5 years or less, you'll be a national expert in that field. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. Hour a day, let's say 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, big vacation, 5 years, that's 1,250 hours. If I studied one subject for 1,250 hours, yeah, I would be a leading authority. Well, that's the first time ever, Rahul, that it occurred to me that I could be somebody, that I could make a difference. And so I started thinking, what do I want to study? Well, it wasn't urban renewal. And then it hit me, I want to do what the guy on the radio is doing. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea. It just felt right. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to become fanatical, in the textbook sense of fanatical, about studying personal development, human development, applied behavioral science is what they call it. It's practical psychology. And I started studying interpersonal communication, goal setting, leadership, sales, all those kind of things. And that's all I wanted to think about, hear about, or be around. And I became a very different person. I became a monomaniac with a mission, like Tom Peters used to say, an author. And so my circle of friends evolved. The ones who'd been hanging out with me, they kind of lost interest. They'd say, nah, let's don't invite him. That's all he wants to talk about is success and achievement and stuff. And other people would say, you're into this too? Dude, come on over to the house. And I would be collaborating with people who were as interested in self-improvement as I was. And so, boom, the growth just accelerated.
So for 1 second, so it's all about the number one, simplifying the goal. So you kind of had a path where the 1,250 hours to become an expert, because I've never heard anybody kind of break it down that simply.
Yeah.
Like if you study for 1,250 hours, you can become a subject matter expert.
But you can do this with your existing job and your existing duties and responsibilities. 1 extra hour each day focused only on the field you want to pursue. So I'm not talking about general studies or saying, well, today I read a couple books that related to the job. No, that doesn't. Extra is your key word. So 1 extra hour, 1 hour you devoted to this intentionally beyond what was normally going to happen. And that's what starts the compounding effect and soon grows to the point where you're GOAT.
Right. There you go, the GOAT. So what if somebody wanted to put in 2 or 3 hours? Would you recommend that to accelerate?
Okay, because I felt, hey, I'm starting from behind. I don't have a college degree. I don't have connections. I don't have money in the bank. I'm not around an intellectual pool of people that stimulate my growth. My home was not a home where we read books and discussed them or things like that. I didn't have ready access to anything that was going to fuel my growth. Plus, I was 52 pounds overweight, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, newly married with a baby at home. My wife was a secretary. And there I was working as a clerk.
Right.
No academic achievements, no athletic achievements. I'd never been, on a team.
Right.
I was on the high school swimming team for half a season, so that didn't really count for much.
So hard work and focus, and then you mentioned environment. So getting out of people who would tear you down or make you go out.
That's huge,
Yeah.
huge. See, so many people in the world don't have a clue. They don't know what they want to do. And so since they don't know what they want to do, they don't believe there's much hope for them. And if there's not much hope for them, how could there be much hope for you unless
Right.
you appear to be gifted, right?
Right.
And if you are gifted, then you're special and that doesn't count and they can't relate to that. In other words, all these are excuses for them to stay like they are. And a lot of those people tend to become cynics. They tend to become very negative and critical and skeptical. And you say, hey, there's this new seminar on goal setting and personal achievement. Yeah, I had a friend went to one of those. This stuff doesn't work. It's all just hype and you get excited and then life goes back to normal and it sucks.
Right.
And then you die.
Right.
So you might as well just die now and get it over with, right? God. But they're out there,
Right.
and they will drag you down. It's like the old thing about crabs. Put crabs in a barrel.
Right.
One crab starts to crawl out, the others will pull it back down, trying to crawl
Yeah.
out first, and so nobody makes it
Right.
out. Well, yeah.
You have something here in the ACORN principle here about goal setting, right?
Yeah.
So it's about pick one item to focus on, write it on a separate piece of paper, describe your current situation in this area, explore it with the following questions. And we'll put the questions in the show notes so everybody
Good.
has access to them. But that's interesting. I mean, do you have any of these that we can turn into a PDF and
I do.
give
Yeah.
away? Okay,
Yeah,
so we can
yeah.
give this away for free for whoever's watching this.
Happy
Okay.
to do that.
Okay, cool. So
It's the ACORN principle for business growth. I did it as a laminated reminder card that would fit in the coat pocket. And I just took some of the key ideas out of the book, The Acorn Principle, and 15 powerful ways to grow your business this year. I did another one to grow yourself this year. And these, it's like give more than you have to. And then I've got questions to pursue that with. And
Right.
it's just a way to overfill the space you're in so that you have to grow beyond it and get a bigger space,
Right.
new opportunities, bigger possibilities, and
Right.
making a bigger difference in the world.
Right, and it's important to kind of have that subject matter expertise so you can stand above the noise and also give more so it becomes easier to give so you can get, right?
Yeah. And if you don't improve yourself, you're always giving from a very small bucket,
Right,
you know?
right.
You want a bigger bucket. How do you get a
Right.
bigger bucket?
And you kind of have
Learn
that-
more, be more, develop yourself.
And you kind of have that pit in your stomach if you're kind of offering things and you're not really that good and you're kind of uncertain. It kind of gives you that presentation of you're halfway in, halfway out.
Yeah.
So you kind of falter quite a bit so you don't have that
A lot of
consistency in your
self-doubt.
life. Yeah,
Second
exactly.
guessing. Yep.
Exactly. So, I mean, going into the next topic that I have here, I want to talk about mindset. And one of the videos on your website on the About page says you talk about how sales is the transfer of energy.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, it means that the purpose of sales is to help somebody in some way. So if I'm selling you, say, a microphone, then the purpose of my selling that microphone is not for me to get money from you. That's just part of the process. The purpose of my selling that microphone is to help you have high quality audio recordings. So, or to have projection of sound if it's for, like a performance. So the purpose of the sale is to help you. If I can't help, if you've got no use for a microphone, shame on me for trying to sell it to you because you've got better uses for your money.
All right.
So selling is me taking my energy for using this and making things work better and transferring it to you or igniting in you that energy so that you say, wow, yeah, that would help a lot. I'd love to have one of those. How much are they? And I tell you, and you say, oh my God, that's an awful lot of money. And I say, okay, compared to what? Everything's an awful lot of money. $5 for a meal is a lot of money if you can get the meal for free. But you can't get those for free. You could get a less expensive, less effective, less impressive microphone for a lot less money. So that's a lot of money compared to what? not compared to a car.
Right. I mean, the way you explain things and simplify things is just absolutely mind-boggling. It's absolutely amazing.
You know, I think that you mentioned mindset, and I think that's a huge factor. Simplification, it just improves communication.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody says, "Hey, man, you know, I'm really concerned." Well, simplify. What are you concerned about? I don't know if we're going to make this call on that company and present our services, and I don't think they're going to go for it. Really, why? Well, you know, we hadn't been in business that long, and where I would stop it and I'd say, is what you're feeling self-doubt? Yeah, I don't. Okay, so let's focus on the value of what we've got to them, and forget about worrying whether we've been in business 30 years or whether we have a huge corporation behind us or whether ours is the cutting edge technology. Let's think about what their problem is and how we can solve it. When I do that, what I do is I shift your mindset away from worrying about you to focusing on serving them, and all of a sudden you become invisible in the thought process, and their needs are driving everything.
Right.
And that's why people buy in the first place.
Right. Why do you think that is? People have fear and they bring up reasons of self-doubt versus the value.
Because they think about themselves.
Right.
If you're giving a speech, you step on that platform and you think, gosh, I hope I don't bomb, you're going to bomb.
Right.
Why? Because you're only thinking about you. The purpose of a speech is not for you to get an A in speech class. It's for you to give some value to the people who are listening and show them the reasons for listening, paying attention,
Right.
taking notes, and doing something about
Right.
it, right? So when I'm getting ready to give a speech, I'm a Christian, so I just say, Lord, help me be valuable for them today. And so I'm thinking about them. And I get onto the stage, and I look out there, and I just focus on bringing the idea from me to them in such a way that it's meaningful to them. And if I know something else is going on, like if there's a loud noise in the other room, I might get on the stage and say, good morning. Wow, that's a loud noise. And they all go, yeah. You know, some speakers
Right.
will say, well, just ignore it. Just stand there and, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There will be 3 things I'll be covering today that you vitally should be interested in. Oh, give me a break. Just get up there and say, wow, that's a loud noise. I'm going to do my best. So let's just focus this direction. There are 3 things I want to cover. That's the main thing. And so you just get into a natural dialogue, and it's no longer oratory, it's communication.
Right.
And people say, I like that guy. Why? Because he wasn't pretentious. Because he or she was not trying to make me do something. They were trying to help me achieve something.
Right. Now, do you have any kind of morning routine or a daily habit that you
I
follow?
always get out of bed before I brush my teeth.
That's a good
It's
one.
a discipline for
That
me.
makes it a little easier.
I've made a life commitment. No, no, pardon my sarcasm. I really don't have a rigid discipline, although over the years, it's always been important to me to start the day with a clear mind instead of starting the day by turning on the TV or the radio. I want my thoughts focused on what matters to me, and I want to start the day by thinking about my goals, my responsibilities, the things I need to focus on. And I want to listen to my body. I'm very self-aware, and I've learned to be that way over the years. But like this morning, I got up at just before 6 a.m., and I went on a 5.75-mile mountain trail run with a group of my friends. And I do that 3 days a week. And I didn't want to get up, but I got up anyway. And so I focused on that first moment, getting myself out of the bed. You know, when my ankle makes it past the edge of the bed,
Yep.
I consider I'm committed,
Right.
and there's no going back. So I
Right.
go ahead and get up. And then I went downstairs. I checked for any last-minute emails I needed to see before I headed out the door. And I grabbed my hiking poles and some water, and I headed out the door. Went to the trailhead and did my hike. At the end, and during the hike, by the way, I didn't listen to recordings, although I could have, books on tape or something, or music. Some people do that, and it's important to them. But even though I'm a musician, I want clear, uninterrupted thinking while I'm on the trail. So I got 45 minutes going to the top of that mountain, clear, uninterrupted, just me time. Because I passed all the other people on the trail.
So like health, fitness, nutrition is a really important aspect of having that mindset, that motivation.
Truly.
And you have a book that you wrote that actually influenced me, because when I met you a while ago, you had sent me a PDF version of it, and then you had the book signing. What year was that, by the way?
That was 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Okay, believe it or not, like I came, you asked me to do a Facebook Live.
Yeah.
That was the first time I did a Facebook Live ever, and I was actually kind of nervous myself, because I'm like, what do I do on a Facebook Live? And I didn't realize you just push one button, so I brought somebody with me, and then they actually pushed the button for me.
You're my technical button pusher.
Yeah, so I'm like, hey, you're my PA, you're my production assistant. So, but anyways, I had completely stopped working out for a period of like 2 to 3 years, gained tons of weight for a guy my size and my body type prior to stopping working out. And you simplified everything for me. You're like, tie your laces and get to the curb.
Absolutely. Put the shoes on. If you want to go running or jogging or whatever it happens to be like that, just put on the shoes and step out the front door. The rest of it will happen. Until you do that, none of the rest of it's going to happen. Well, you know, I've heard it's bad for your knees. Really? Did you hear that from a fit person or a not fit person? No, not fit person. Okay. I've heard that, you know, you shouldn't, unless you've got really high quality shoes, you shouldn't, because, you know, it's going to hurt your ankles and it's going to, give me a break. Put on your shoes and step out the door. Yeah, but I don't, you know, it burns my lungs and my muscles ache when I run, and I'm not a runner. I'm not built for running. Really, put on your shoes and step out the door. See, no matter what your excuse, my answer is going to be put on your shoes and step out the door. Yeah, but what if I get out the door and put on your shoes and step out the door. So you step out the door. Now what are you going to do? You could go back in the house and eat ice cream. I've done that. I made a commitment to myself when I was fat and when I was smoking 2 packs a day. I said, I'm going to become a runner. I'm going to jog. Well, I'd never done that. And I was out of shape and overweight. So I said, I can't commit to exercise every day, but I can commit to putting on the shoes and stepping out the door. So I did that every day. Rain, snow, sleet, dark, cold, hot, didn't matter. Every single day. When I was too busy for anything else and I forgot, I'd run back in the house, put on my running shoes, step out to the curb, touch the curb, go back in the house, take off my running shoes and go to a movie. Every day. That one little silly, stupid exercise. But I started, when I was out there, asking the question, now what do I do? Well, I could walk to the corner. I could jog to that mailbox, but that would hurt. Okay. The first time it did. The third time it did. The fifth time it did. The sixth time it didn't. And I went one more tree and one more block and finally I did a mile. And then I got to where I could run 5 miles easily and not even be out of breath. Today, I am over 70 years old. My waist is 30 inches. I weigh about 150 pounds. Back then, I weighed 200. So I lost 52 pounds, got in shape, stopped smoking, all that, completely turned my life around, and it's been that way for more than 40 years. And all I do is commit to the first step. Put on the shoes, step out the door.
That really actually helped me too. I mean, I once I make my bed, I'm not going back into it.
There you go.
That's kind of my version of walking out the door as well. So anyways, let's segue into some fire here. I want to get into like the topics of like sales, motivation, and leadership. Now, there's going to be a lot of people out here that are just getting into sales. There's going to be people who are intermediate and advanced. So this can help absolutely everybody, right?
It's like my typical audience when I go around the world. Yeah.
Right. So like, do you have like when everybody wants the shortcut. So they want to know, is there a framework I can follow? And obviously they don't realize that 1,250 hours of expertise is such a core element. But for those of the guys that like say, hey, is there a framework that you follow? Is there principles?
Well, first off, let's simplify even that. How do you get 1,250 hours of learning? 1 minute at a time. It's not the first hour that counts, it's the first minute. Actually, it's the first part of the first minute. Just put on your running shoes and step out the door. In other words, just pick up the book and read the first page. Yeah, but I don't have time to read a whole... Read the first page. I'm not even sure I mentioned... Read the first paragraph. Just start, for heaven's sakes, right? So how do you learn to sell? The way you learn to sell is, first off, you watch salespeople. You study sales. You pick up a book on sales, skim through it, see if it's interesting. If you like the way it's written and laid out, then read the whole book. I don't have time to read. Don't worry about it. Read the first paragraph. You know, and then try some of the ideas. Get around people who are in sales and watch what they do and ask them questions. You know, when I was a kid, I would sell my used toys when it was time to get a new toy. I would take the old toys and I'd go out to the curb and set up a little card table and sell the toys to the neighbor kids. And then I had some money to go buy new toys. Cool. So I was doing garage sales or flea market, you know, whatever, back when I was this tall.
Yeah.
And then I sold donuts door to door. I got a job. My dad, I went to him and I said, can I have an allowance? He said, no. He said, but you can borrow my lawnmower. And it was one of those old push mowers before they had engines on them. The rotary push mower, you know, that kind of thing.
Earn your keep, earn
and he
your way.
said, yeah, go around the neighborhood and offer to mow people's lawns. And I did. And I said, how much do I charge? He said, just ask them what they'd pay.
That's easy.
And it varied. Some would pay more, some paid less. And I did that and got some money. And then I found out a local donut shop needed little boys like me to carry a basket from door to door and offer half dozens of donuts for purchase at the front door. And then I found out there's a better way. My dad said, why don't you call all the neighbors in our neighborhood and ask them, how would you like hot, fresh donuts tomorrow morning for breakfast delivered to your door? Well, I hadn't thought about that. Yes, absolutely. I'll take 2 dozen, da-da-da-da-da. And so I had a regular route where Mom would drive me up there and we'd pick up all these donuts. I set my pre-order the night before, and they'd cook them up for me, and I'd take them while they were still steaming in the bag and deliver them to these people for breakfast. I mean, this is making me salivate just thinking about it.
You're the Grubhub before Grubhub.
But I tell you what,
existed.
it was great. You know, it was like Uber Eats, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I turned my little door-to-door thing, hoping for sales, into a route where I had regular customers, and you know, every week the ones who were buying changed, but I had a regular number of people, and I could predict my success and all that. And I had a paper route, and I'd go knock on doors. Do you want to subscribe to the paper? You know, and so all of that led to discipline. It led to growing confidence, because if you're not contacting people you don't know and asking them to think about something they hadn't been considering, then you're not going to develop the confidence you need. You can't learn sales in a seminar and then be good at it immediately when you hit the street. You've got to be in uncomfortable situations and not having an easy way out of those before you. Well, it's kind of like if you want my muscles to be big, don't lift my weights for me.
Right.
Because it'll only make your muscles big.
Right.
I'll still be a weakling.
Right.
Parents who enable their kids by doing the work for them, making the path easier for them, that's time-released child abuse. In other words, you're making them happy right now and they feel good right now, but when they get out on their own, assuming they ever do, they're going to hate you for what you did because you enabled them instead of empowering them. The difference between those two is huge. People need to face their fears, their challenges, and learn to deal with them.
Right.
Teach them a formula, give them a tool, a checklist, something they can use to make it more likely to succeed, but don't take away the challenge.
Right. What's a simple way that somebody can get started? Because like if somebody doesn't like cold calling or door knocking and they have that inner fear in themselves, is there something that you can refer them to or help them with to kind of gain that confidence before they go out in the trenches?
It really starts with mindset. In my book, Relationship Selling, and the whole concept behind that of making relationships an asset. It's not about nice person selling. It's about considering that the connection between people is either an asset or a liability, depending on how you treat it. So when you first make contact, it's just a transaction, like a kiosk selling, you know, a vending machine giving you a cola, right? There is no relationship. But over time, after a while, you've cultivated trust. You've developed a little bit of a bond, and ultimately you get to a business friendship where the person says, Rahul, I don't know what I need, but this is about how much I can spend. What do I need?
Right.
That's not selling, man. That's prescription.
Right.
You know, you just prescribe and they buy.
Right.
Why would that happen? Because the trust level is so high. So what do you do to develop your confidence? Item 1, never for the rest of your life ever make a cold call. Now, I didn't say don't make a call on somebody you don't know for a reason that they aren't aware of and do it at a time that they weren't expecting. There's every reason in the world to do that kind of thing occasionally. But that doesn't have to be a cold call. You're saying, make it a warm call. No, that's just juvenile. Make it what it is, a new call. It's new. It's not cold, not warm, it's not neutral. It's just new. So what do you do when you meet strangers? Well, first off, ask for permission. Excuse me, do you have just a moment to talk about whatever? Or excuse me, may I show you something that I think is going to help your business? Whatever. But excuse the interruption in a polite way and then get right into a reason they should want to listen. Because the first thing, you need to introduce yourself. My name is Jim Cathcart. I'm with Consolidated Associated Enterprise Incorporated. And you've probably heard of us. No, you haven't? Well, that's okay. We solve people's problems.
That's actually a good line right there. I like that.
But the main thing is be courteous, be appropriate, and be clear as to why they should want to listen to you talk about whatever it is. And by the way, they don't want to listen to you talk about it. They want to learn about it. You talking is simply part of the process or the experience. So make it about solving their problem. So if I were talking with you about training services and I knew that you owned an organization that had, say, 75 employees approximately, I would say, excuse me, my name is Jim Cathcart. I'm a training and development specialist. I ran across your organization recently, and so I checked you out on LinkedIn, and you built an impressive track record.
Yeah.
So I'm starting out with something genuine. I'm not puffing him up. If I didn't feel that way, I wouldn't have said that. According to LinkedIn, you have about 75 employees. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What we do is we offer training to make those employees more likely to be truly engaged in their job instead of just showing up. We focus a lot on mindset to show them reasons for rethinking what they're doing to find a deeper meaning in it and more cause to be really committed to doing it well. Is that something you think could have value to your organization?
Yes, that would be incredible. We've been struggling with that we've had a lot of turnover actually because people aren't engaged.
And turnover not only costs you the loss of that person, but you just lost all the time you invested in training them, teaching them, all the resources they used up while they were here, all the connections they might have made that now just go dormant. Right. And so you have to start over, but you don't start over working. You start over searching, and hours and hours and hours of your time are wasted in the search process until you finally find another person with whom you have to begin the cycle all over again. So turnover is huge, and I don't blame you for being concerned about it. I just empathized with him over his concerns about turnover. I just reinforced his thinking that turnover is a bad thing, and I told him, it's not just bad, it's awful, and proved it with illustrations, right? And I say, so what causes people to leave? It's interesting. Rarely do people leave jobs. They leave relationships. So those people that don't see meaning in their work, they say, well, there's no reason for me to hang with these people any longer.
Right.
Those people that don't like the way their boss manages them or supervises their work, they leave the boss instead of the company.
Right.
So when you've found the talent you need, we can help show that talented person why to stay fully committed to making this a successful organization and how you can keep them committed to it. This is one of our books, and then I just go right into the content at prescription and then diagnosis. See, that's the thing. If you just start prescribing right off the bat, what's going to happen is the person can say, wait, take that pill. What do you mean? I'm not even sick. But if you start with the diagnosis first, like a doctor would, Tell me what your concerns are. Here's what most people like you tend to be concerned about. Yes, I'm concerned about that one. No, I'm not concerned about that one. Now I know what to focus on. Now I can prescribe.
Right.
So diagnosis first, prescription second, and then make sure it's a dialogue, not a monologue, not a data dump by you, because your talking will not convince him to buy. His thinking and understanding will convince him to buy. But your talking will simply tell him what to think or talk about.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, that sounded so natural, just such that would make me comfortable just following the framework or the ideas you just mentioned.
Thank you.
There.
And we can take another example if you want. Choose another field.
Yeah, let's actually, since we're going to be talking about a lot of digital marketers, I'm going to be in this audience here. Why don't we talk about, let's say, what I do, Facebook advertising.
Excellent. Hi, Raul. I'm Jim Cathcart.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
I understand you're on Facebook in a number of different locations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in a bunch of groups online, yeah.
Yeah, my company does Facebook marketing, and so we specialize in optimizing your presence on Facebook. So I checked you out in advance. I'd heard about you, and I went on Facebook, and I looked, and I noticed your homepage on there, and I see that you've got about 1,300 contacts, and I saw a couple of photos, and I can see how your company is branded, and your website is there. What I couldn't tell is what you really offer and what the value is to the customer. Is that something that you've given a lot of thought to in relation to your Facebook position?
You know what, we just don't understand it, and we don't do a lot of social media, so we haven't taken advantage of anything in that aspect.
Well, that's the only thing we deal with. In other words, when you think about that occasionally, we only have occasions when we're not thinking about that. It's our all the time thing. And so we study organizations like yours and a lot of different ones, and we look for the principles that apply to everybody instead of the techniques that would only apply to them or to them. And what we've learned over the years is that there are certain principles that absolutely determine success or failure with social media presence. And in yours, I saw about 4 things that are not there that I think would just absolutely be a booster rocket to what you're doing. Would you like to hear about those? I mean, I'd be happy to.
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know that our customers are on Facebook.
Well, what we found is that, and then I give you some statistics about customers on Facebook, and talk about the number of purchases that begin with that as the starting point.
Sure.
And then I would come back and I'd say, tell me about your customers. So then you start describing your customers, and I would explain how those people use Facebook. And I would have facts to back it up.
Right.
So I would be getting into, proving to you that there are people on Facebook that aren't finding you.
Right.
Or there are people on Facebook, and there are people on Facebook who are finding you and not spending any time on your site. And there are places in Facebook that you ought to be appearing, and you have no presence there at all.
Right.
And then I would compare that at some point in our dialogue with your existing expenditures for advertising, for promotional campaigns, for product packaging and things like that, and show you how by just redirecting some of those dollars, you wouldn't spend an extra penny at all.
Right.
In fact, you'd probably save money and get a much bigger payback from the sales that were generated.
Now, from a
Now, I made all that up.
I know, that was incredible.
Right. Okay.
So you're not a Facebook company, are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's what all right, good. You don't steal my job then.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like if somebody's they're working from home, or maybe they have a skeleton crew or virtual assistants all over the place, what do you recommend they do? Like this sounded like I'd be a niche of yours in this scenario. So like, do you have a niche yourself right now that you specialize in, or would you recommend someone new to have a niche going out the gate so they can be more successful?
A niche means that you've got a focused target. So if I serve dentists, for example, then I've got a niche, and that's a specific market. If my market is Oak Park, California, then I have a geographic niche, And the people in there are all kinds of people, but they're all in the same location. They all go to the same grocery stores. They all go to the same coffee shops and so forth. They know the names of the streets. Their kids go to the same general schools in that area. So they got a lot in common. See, the way to identify a market is a group of people who have enough in common, independent of you, that you can establish a reputation among them. So a group of people who have enough naturally in common with each other that you can establish a reputation among them. A lot of people say, well, I serve the women's market. No, you don't. Excuse me? Women are not a market. Women is a gender, and women tend to have buying patterns that are a little different from men, but women as a group are not a market unless maybe we're talking about selling women's cosmetics for which men are not a prospect. But if you say I serve the women's market, which women's market? Women entrepreneurs, women in home care,
Right.
Women nurses, women who own service stations, women who jog, women.
Right.
See, the more specific you get, the more you can find the people you're looking for.
Right.
So if I say my market is hiking enthusiasts, well, okay. Now, no matter where you are, I know you go to sporting goods stores.
Sure.
I know you go outdoors and are exposed to the elements under all types of weather conditions. I know you wear a particular type of clothing because it works better for hiking. I know you have the same concerns about things like poison oak or poison ivy or insects or snakes or animals,
Sure.
whatever. I know that there are certain times of the year that are good for what you do and certain times of the year that are
Right.
not. So I've got a zillion
Ton of information there.
information bits that I can bring together to determine whether I'm selling you hiking poles or classes on hiking or websites or apps that lead you to the best trails.
Sure.
Or guides for flora and fauna if you're the the Sierra Club kind of hiker that's
Right.
out to look at things, or hardcore things for fitness nuts like me who never look at anything on the way out.
Right.
They only look at it on the way back. So
Right.
on the way out, I've got 2 hiking poles and a focus
Right.
like that,
Right.
and I'm on a timer watch, and I'm going for a personal best.
Right.
So when I get to the end of the hike, all right, now we can talk.
Right. Totally.
But not until then, right? So the clearer your niche is, the easier it is to figure out what would help them. How can
Right.
I sell to them? Well, first off, what would help them? What do they care about? What are they afraid of? What are they planning for? What are their dreams? What are their
Right.
hopes? What would they say if you said, answer this question, if only?
Now let's go over some of the resources that you have available that we can give away for free that are on your website on cathcart.com.
First off, there's 730 pages of free resources.
That's amazing. And there's what are the subject matters of everything?
Well, subject matter is success, success
Okay.
achievement. They say, who's your market, Jim? And my answer is success seekers, people that want to do well. They said, yeah, it's pretty broad. Well, yes, it is. But what I want is people who are eager to set goals, do the actions, develop the discipline, and become more successful.
Right.
If a person doesn't desire to be an achiever on some level, they're not my market. I'm not here for the general education of the population. I'm here to stimulate that spark in each individual to get them to say, I could do that.
Right.
Wow, I could do so much more than
Right.
I'm doing now. How does it work? Right? And I
Right.
say, well, I've got a book for that, Well, I've got, so you go to
Right.
cathcart.com, and I chose that for a reason. Not motivation.com, it's not be better or succeed or whatever.com. I figured 40 plus years ago, I'm going to be the main product. Now, I'm the vehicle for the product. The product is what I teach and how people can use it. But I'm the vehicle. So if I'm the vehicle, then I've branded my company as me. I've got to make me kind of semi-famous so that people say, oh, it's from him, I want to listen.
Sure.
Instead of, oh, who's that?
Right.
Right? So I want to go from who's he to who's who in as many ways as I can. And that means the branding job is a branding of me as a subject expert. And then I created Cathcart.com So there's easy to figure out what's his website. Well, what's his name? Jim Cathcart. Well, look him up. Oh, Cathcart.com, that's probably him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've mentioned your name to many people, and they've heard of you. They're like, oh my God, how do you know
Tremendous.
Jim? Yeah. So,
Tremendous.
So
Yeah.
in the world I
Well,
roam in, they know you.
So in that website, there are articles. You know, I've done hundreds of blog posts. There are videos you can watch, short videos. They're free. There is a store if you want to, get my books and other training materials. So you can do that through the site. But it'll also direct you in some cases to Amazon, and you can buy things there. There are just so many details in there that anything you want to know about the field that I'm involved in, I've pretty much posted it on the website so that you can easily access it.
Right, and let's talk about your training. Like if somebody wanted to hire you and they wanted to do this, whether it's in person or online, can they?
Yeah, I do the, people say, what do you do? Well, I help people succeed. How do you do that? In a variety of ways. I give keynote speeches to huge audiences of thousands and thousands of people, sometimes for 6 hours at a time. I recently did that in China. I do individual coaching for small groups or for individuals. One of my clients pretty much uses all of my delivery modes. This client is an association, professional association in the automotive industry. And they came to me years ago and they said, would you come by and sit in on a committee meeting we're having? It's a best practices committee. And we're all going to get together. We're all owners of automobile repair shops. We're going to get together and talk about the best practices that help each one succeed. And I said, sure, I'll sit in. So I came by and, they paid me a small token fee. And I sat there and listened. And then I made some observations and recommendations. And they said, that was good. Our people liked you. Would you be interested in writing an article for our magazine? Sure. So I wrote an article for their magazine. And they said, the article we published went over well, and we like the way you write. Would you be willing, if we paid you a monthly fee or an annual fee, would you be willing to write an article for all 10 of our magazine issues every year? Yeah. Okay. And they did that, and after about 3 months, they said, we're having a big expo, a big convention and exposition of parts and products in Las Vegas. Would it be okay with you if we bought several hundred copies of your book to give out to our managers and owners at the expo? Well, yeah, it'd be okay. So they bought hundreds of copies of my book, and they took it to Las Vegas to their expo. They called me just before expo, and they said, Jim, we're going to be there. We have all of our people there, and we're going to be giving out your books. I was just thinking, if we paid your way and got you a hotel room, would you fly over to Vegas and just, show up and sign some books and shake some hands and then go back home the next day? Sure. So I go over to Vegas at their expense. Now notice, I've been paid to sit in on a committee meeting. Right. I'm being paid every month for writing an article for their magazine. They bought my books by the boxes, and they've flown me to Las Vegas to go shake hands and sign autographs. Now, talk about hard duty. So I'm a happy camper. So I get there, and they're having a management gathering for all the shop owners. And they said, could we introduce you to the group? Would you say hi? And I said, sure. So I got up and I told a story. It took about 15 minutes and, just told a story that made a point that they could all relate to. And then I said, I'll stick around and sign the books, personalize them for you. And so people were coming up, hey, I've been reading your articles. I love your stuff. And, would you sign this one to Jane and sign this one to, and I bought one for each of my staff. So they sold all the books and took orders for more. And then I got back home, and after the expo had wound down, they called me and they said, would you be willing to come next year and be the keynote speaker for our expo in Washington, D.C.?
Wow, that's
well,
incredible.
Yeah, that's what I do. So absolutely. So I was planning for that, and I got all ready for it. And they said, we're going to hire 2 other speakers. Would you be willing to advise us as to who we should get? Because you know our group, and you know the world of professional speakers. You've got tons of friends out there as past president of that group. So, and I said, sure. So when I got back home after this convention, and 2 of my friends were there also speaking, and we spent some personal time together, I said, to the guys who had hired me, I said, I've got some recommendations for how you could do what you do at Expo better. One of the things you can do, since there's so many people there exhibiting their wares and their services, you could offer a free sales seminar for them before Expo opens and teach them boothmanship. In other words, teach them techniques for being better at manning a booth at an exposition or a trade show. And they said, wow, that'd be a great member service. And I said, yeah, since I'm coming back next year as your keynote speaker again, I would be willing to do that as an added value for only X dollars. And they said, done. So I did that. And then they said, hey, could you just give us like a quote for everything? I said, what do you mean everything? They said, well, we want to get together 2 or 3 times a year with you, just us, the 2 leaders, and you, and do a brainstorming session and get like a 30,000-foot view of how to run this organization better. And we'll tell you what we're dealing with and facing and what we're dreaming of, and you help us find ways to do it. Would you do that? Yeah. Would you also speak at our expo? Yes. Would you also recommend other speakers? Yes. Would you also still write for our magazine? Yes, I would. Can we still buy you? Yeah, absolutely. You can buy my products. Right. Would you give us one price for all that and we can just pay you monthly on an automatic pay? Yes.
Beautiful.
That started 6 years ago, still going.
That's amazing.
I could do any one of those things. I could coach an individual and do that one-to-one, which I've done a couple of times for some of their folks. Or I could do this whole generic thing. I can even do a workshop before the expo and convention starts for the other speakers and presenters to talk about presentation techniques. So all the things I offer, I've been able to offer through this one organization, and there are other organizations that have done similarly. Right. So that's my ideal client, is to have someone like that. And I've done that in the life insurance field. I've done it in a number of other fields.
Right. So if you're interested, go to cathcart.com. You have an online course. You have the man in person. So if you need anything, visit his free resources. Check out his services. You're talking to the greatest of all time. You're ranked the #1 speaker in the world.
Well, in some categories.
In some categories.
When I go to China, they promote me as the #1 speaker in the world, which is not accurate. And they say, well, wait a minute. I said, well, what about speakers like, Anthony Robbins or Simon Sinek or, whoever's the latest biggest hit on TED or on YouTube or whatever. And they said to me, yeah, but have they been president of the National Speakers Association? Well, some of them have. Have they received the Golden Gavel Award, the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Cavett Award, the Speaker Hall of Fame, the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame, the Certified Speaking Professional? Have they been selected top 5, top 25, whatever, greatest influencers in the field of this and that? Well, no, they haven't done all those things. Well, you have. So, okay, in one way of looking at it, sure, I would be #1 speaker, but I don't consider myself to be the best speaker, the richest speaker, the most influential speaker. I've just had a long, good run, and I'm very grateful for the privilege of doing it. And I want to keep on doing it for as long as I can form a coherent thought.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad to have you here. Would you come back?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Thank you
very much, Jim.
My pleasure.